Something I hear all the time from people is, I know I need to leave this relationship, but the good stuff makes it hard to leave. Or, now that this relationship is over, it's so hard. I miss the good stuff. When I hear that, I'm curious about what this good stuff was. And the stuff that is shared about the so-called good stuff that a person misses, or that would make it hard to leave a toxic relationship, it's often stuff that actually isn't all that good. Or it's actually sort of an intoxicating dynamic that isn't so good. But folks said the good was a sort of waiting and wondering and a sense that maybe this time it could be different, right? Lots of people get stuck in narcissistic relationships, or actually even originally get into them because of the so-called good things that are on display. These good things may be stuff or actions or whatever words that convinced you into the relationship, even in the early days when you might have had that spidey sense that something wasn't quite right. The good things, whatever those were to you, may have blurred your vision or even kept you stuck long after the relationship became quite toxic. Your good thing is not someone else's good thing. Sure, there are some universals, but even those, for example, even attractiveness isn't always universal. For example, some folks would say, and I've heard people say, it feels uncomfortable to be in a relationship with someone who's judged to be too attractive because it sort of brings up insecurities and things, right? You may love dogs and someone else doesn't like them at all. So a partner with lots of dogs might be very attractive to one person, not at all attractive to someone else. But that stuff is all superficial stuff. As we dig deeper, it may be stuff like that's the good stuff, is like being really organized or being really responsible or being really disciplined or being really outgoing or being serious or sharing emotions readily. It could be things that wouldn't register to other people as good. Again, we're all different, so the things that are good might feel different. And then there is the stuff that gets you stuck, that nobody would likely think is good. For example, someone who always feels just a bit slippery or just out of reach, and the good thing is the game of it all and having to win them over. I mean, that's exhausting. But for people who have it, it's often an old wound, and a wound that can keep you on the hook. The breakup, makeup cycle, it can feel very ancient. And you may have even had the experience of relationships where your relationship almost felt easy. The other person didn't feel slippery at all. They were open, they were available, they were responsive. And some people sometimes judge relationships like that as uninteresting or not intimate or romantic. So these things, whatever these things are that are good, that keep a person stuck in a narcissistic relationship, have backstories. Now, some of the backstories are not that interesting and may merely be a byproduct of what society tells us we are supposed to want or value, stuff like money, appearance, credentials. But others, these are personal to you. In fact, some people wouldn't find them good at all or even downright ick. But the narcissistic relationship's good in your book comes from something far deeper. And these good things matter because they may have been what made the relationship hard to leave or provided the substantiation for the justifications. For example, a person in a relationship who is very financially careful, saves their money, lives according to a strict budget, that may not be a good thing necessarily to everyone, but the backstory on that may be that you grew up with selfish, immature, financially irresponsible parents. That this new person in your life, their sort of save their pennies way of being, even if it results in them being sort of miserly and not particularly generous, may still strangely feel good and may get turned into a narrative that feels safe. Another example could be that someone grew up with a very weak father, and the father was railroaded by your narcissistic mother or by their narcissistic boss, and then you meet a man who had qualities such as decisiveness, maybe even physical strength. That might be something you experience as good stuff. And unless you pay attention, you may feel stuck in what you're thinking is this good thing, which stops being good after a while if the person has narcissistic patterns, but the narrative is already written about it. Sometimes the good is merely that they are the opposite of your former toxic partner. So the original partner you had, the original narcissistic partner, may have come home late all the time and been shady and dodgy and betrayal-y. The new partner may be self-righteous and controlling and cold, but they don't cheat. And those good things that feel hard to leave or felt like a lot to lose, it's easy when you're navigating the very confusing aftermath of a narcissistic relationship to get lost in the stuff you lost, instead of focusing on why these things even felt like good things you lost. The origin story of the stuff that felt compelling, the stuff you miss, the stuff you still think about it. Dig deeper. Why was it good? Why was it good? Now listen, sometimes a cigar is just a cigar. Maybe you just miss the good sex or their blue eyes. But you also may miss the sense of family you created, holiday traditions, a home. And even though they treated you badly within those structures, they may have been an overriding of what you didn't get in childhood, for example. You may miss the feeling and the tension reduction that would come from the breakup-makeup cycles. It may have reproduced that sense of being able to win over that unavailable parent. You may miss the times your narcissistic partner would come back after an infidelity and that dynamic of being chosen and hoovered. It's a powerful one if that didn't happen for you in childhood. And that could be the good thing. But those aren't good things. They're just powerful counterweights. And frankly, the more that these good things tie into these deeper origin stories, the more they can make you feel stuck and missing your narcissistic relationship and not being able to mentally let it go, and even not always even able to articulate what's the good stuff you miss. But a big step to mentally letting it go is figuring out what made the good feel good. And was it good, or was it evocative? Was it familiar, or was it a triumph? Was the little kid in you getting the win where you didn't as a child? Was it the false sense of safety you got in the narcissistic relationship because it was so different than your origin story? Dig into that. And as you do, you may feel some of that rumination lift, and you may get not only a hell of a lot more clarity, but you may not feel as sort of stuck in the post-relationship landscape. I hope that helps. Thanks again.